FDI. The East African countries are competing for FDI. There's a potential to be there. The GDP, the market says, should produce more. These are positive factors for economic integration. And all these could be policy parameters which can improve the work of a trademark. Now, there are also trade reducing factors. Now, this distance, as I pointed out at the beginning, it is all sort of things, not the distance between Nairobi and Kampala or whatever it is. These are costs related to trade, all sort of costs, delays at the border, clearing, and all these are hidden there. And I think this is where the trademark is, right? They have been doing work there. Population turned out to be negative in the gravity model. Other people argue that high population is a good thing. Others say you have to reduce our population. But the population is growing at 3%, over 3%. Look at the economic growth rate. If the average is 5%, the gap is only 2. So how are we going to improve the impact of trade? Then conflict turned out to be negative. Conflict, I think this is what is being done. What do they call it? Conflict resolution, so that we can trade more. Exchange rate in economics should actually be positive. But if it fluctuates so much, it brings uncertainty in trade. Then landlocked. I think trademark is doing something here. Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, they are landlocked. Their cost is much more than Kenya and Tanzania. Okay, to confirm my estimate, I did some elasticity for individual countries. You can see Kenya is much more responsive to trade. You can give many reasons here. I'll leave that for discussion. One could be Kenya's manufacturing sector it is more, you can respond to trade with manufactured goods rather than natural resource or agriculture. Probably this explains why you can see those a bit lower, right? But there are many reasons for that. I think it's repeated. Okay, this now answers the second objective of the study. What are the conditions under which poverty can be eliminated? This is the second research question. But just as liberalization can improve the welfare, but take, for example, the poor of the poor. Under the liberalization, probably we would expect prices to remain constant or fall if they are to benefit for certain goods they enjoy. The price of car can rise, but don't allow the price of the second-hand clothes to go up. So these are the losers we were talking about, losers and gain, those who gain. These are the conditions. But then in the long run, and we are far away from it, if we are to gain, we should have inclusive development. And the trajectory are well spelled out there. Sustained growth for at least 3 decades. In East Africa, ask yourself, have we sustained growth for 3 decades? No. This growth we are talking about, impressive growth, these are 2, 3, 4 years thing, and the following day it will fall to 0. That's not sustained growth. We need to look at it. And structural transformation. Somebody was talking about structural transformation. The truth is, I'm an economist, I like telling better truth. There's virtually no transformation let me confine myself to economics. There's no transformation, what we call real transformation, taking place in all of the East African countries. So they're off the trajectory The transformation means enlarging the industrial sector and narrowing the agricultural sector. Prove me right or wrong, there are progress on industrialization, but not to the extent of talking about transformation to catch the eyes of the people. All right? Then output and export diversification. Well, that's what trademark and the government are doing. We're diversifying. Significant reduction in poverty. I don't know whether you see it right, but if you see it, it may be to the measurement. If you measure poverty by $1.25 per day, then the statistics being reported in East Africa, and that's what it is, that Uganda has reduced it from 57% to 24 or 25. They're using $1.2 a day. What if we use $2 a day? What would the figure read like? But $2 in East Africa, what can it buy for a poor person? Right? And I'll leave that equality in income. We talked about income distribution yesterday. Somebody gave a very good picture of how income or wealth is distributed. It is going to be a hindrance to trade and will act like a brake for us to be on the inclusive development trajectory. There are some short-run policy measures, whether for government or for the East African Secretariat, I don't know, right? I'm drawing this conclusion from their studies. It is general, it is not specific. This is for us to discuss. Support the losers from trade, I don't know how. Promote social cohesion, right? I think safety net is already being done. We're not breaking new grounds here, right? We see how we can do it, but logistic like roads, it is being done by trademark. Eliminate trade barrier, it is being done. Emphasize manufacturing sector, that's the transformation I talk about. It is being done, right? Diversify the export base is being done, I think it is a repetition. Eliminate conflict and strength, it is a repetition. Implement efficient trade facilitation measures is being done, encourage foreign is being done. Those measures are already there. Maybe what we can discuss is how to do it better. Then in the long run, it is those conditions of inclusive development. And once we achieve that, maybe then we can begin to talk like the South Asian countries of Korea, Singapore, China. But at the moment, I don't think East Africa can talk of inclusive development, which ultimately will improve trade. Okay, to conclude, what I did is to assess the relationship between trade and poverty through the gravity model. I measured trade elasticity, right? Then I categorized those factors as trade improving and trade reducing. Then I think this study is, I didn't put it there. It is significant in that it fills the gap. And from these factors, we can derive policies. And this is a way of disseminating the results of the study. Thank you very much for listening.
I'm called Isaac Shinyekwa, and I work with Economic Policy Research Center in Uganda. Quickly, I will go and look at the topic. I find the topic good, but I also find it a little bit broad with many variables which are difficult to measure. If you're looking at trade flows, performance, and impact on poverty, and then you go on inclusive development is quite a broad concept, which, in my opinion, could not be addressed in this paper as quickly as possible. Because in the paper, the author did mention sustainable growth, structural transformation, export diversification, income equality, significant reduction in poverty as inclusive development, which are not adequately analyzed in the paper. So the paper could be trade flows, performance, and impact on poverty, and maybe an analysis of the East African community that could make it better. The background is well handled by raising pertinent questions. The only limitation within the background is that it doesn't offer us work that has been done to that effect within the East African community. I don't think it's a vacuum. Somebody has done some work on poverty and trade somewhere. I have at least done some work on that, plus others. So I think the background should bring in that to improve this paper very well. When we come to the literature review still, there's a lot of literature review from the area internationally, but there's limitations with regard to the East African community for that matter. Now, when I come to the methodology, I'm trying to be as quick as possible. The methodology is good when you use a gravity model to analyze trade flows and performance. But for you to be able to link trade to poverty, you need other superior methods. You like it or not. This is my point of departure. Why do I say like that? There are methods like partial equilibrium methods developed by World Bank and UNCTAD using what we call WIT's SMART model, World Integrated Trade Solutions. It does bring out even the sectoral effects. Who are the losers at the sector level? Who are the winners? So a partial equilibrium modeling would have done this paper more justice in trying to bring out the effects. It is easy. All you need to do is register with the World Bank. It's a web-based. You just get it and you do the analysis. All you need to know is the changes either in the quantities of commodities sold and bought, or the changes in the tariffs, and that is enough for you to do that sort of analysis. I've done that analysis for Uganda. There's somebody called Kato who did, I think, for Kenya. So there's that analysis that can help us in that area. And there are other areas within this partial equilibrium modeling. Now, the other one, which is a little bit difficult, extremely difficult, I should say, because you need a very big database, is the general equilibrium model, which is a social accounting matrices. This is extremely good. How does it work? It will give you macro effects, it will give you sector effects, the growth effects, whether the sectors are going up or down. It will also give you, when you conduct a micro simulation, the poverty effect. And if you have disaggregated data within at household level, urban households, skilled workers, non-skilled workers, all these to bring out this, who is a loser and who is a winner. These will do better poverty analysis, actually. I did that for a study, again for Uganda, looking at the reduction of the tariffs along the Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania border. And it really showed the poverty effect, which is more robust than the gravity model, which gives you but not necessarily linking the two. And then there are, IFPRI has developed methods, what we call pass-through effects. They have used this whenever there are international price fluctuations to exactly link who are the losers, who are the winners in all this. Like we had the price changes in 2028. These are very good methods that will show you consumption effects, income effects, who is winning and who is losing, the producers and the consumers. They do a better job than the gravity model. What the gravity model does is good, but not good enough to really take us to where the problem is. So in that sense, our findings will not really link us, will not link properly trade and poverty in this sort of analysis. We need something more than this. To that effect, I would like to make a final comment on emerging policies from this study. The policies that are emerging from this study are so broad, and they are linked to inclusive development, which is not analyzed in the paper. So my suggestions are to improve this sort of analysis. If you really want to link poverty and trade, we need to borrow some of these other methods I've mentioned to bring out the picture. But when we talk about trade performance, I think the paper has done quite a commendable job.
One of the challenges we are facing in the region is data. And in most cases, you find that when analysis is being done, you really either get misleading conclusions. And we in business, we really see what is going on the ground. We see things happening, but when analysis is being done, then you see the contrary. So I think there's an intervention which is really very critical as a region if we want to see that we need to invest in, first of all, data collection, so that we're able to collect the right data. Right now in the region, for you to get the right database is a challenge. You will never get the right database. Then the conclusions, I agree with Jane. They're sort of generalized.
Have entered into regional trade agreements with objectives ranging from the reduction of trade barriers. We saw that includes the removal of tariffs and non-tariff barriers on intra-block trade in goods. And going to the end of that spectrum, to the extension of investment liberalization, economic union, and even, like in our case, full political integration. From my literature review and from what I've seen, theorists seem to believe that it is possible to predict the impact of one regional bloc when you simulate a successful bloc as a prototype. And for comparative regional studies, the classical prototype has been the EU integration. So in this study, I kind of adopt this approach. I employ the example of the EU, the European Union enlargement of 2004, to articulate and predict the impact of acceding to a regional bloc that has adopted a common market and a customs union. So, let me just begin by stating what I mean by the EU enlargement of 2004. I'm sure a lot of you already know this. In May 2004, actually on the 1st of May 2004, 10 new member states from Eastern and Central Europe with a population of about 77 million and coming from a region covering over 700,000 square kilometers acceded to the European Union. So I will call them the EU10, so you can see them there. And they were joining a union that already had membership of 15 countries. So I will call them in this paper, and that's what they're referred to as the EU 15. So I'm basically reviewing secondary quantitative and qualitative data that is available from ESC. It's been criticized. When we went back yesterday after the discussion, there was a hot debate over the availability of quality data from the ESC, but I will use that. That's what is available. And then my study is also based on review of studies on the impact of the EU enlargement of 2004. So, let me talk about the customs union and common market as instruments of trade facilitation. In the case of the EU10, they joined a union that already had an operational customs union and a single market. So they were joining an already established union. So, and you hear me talking about enlargement. So EU was becoming larger. The EU had adopted the customs union in 1968, and then the single market in 1993. The ESC, on the other hand, adopted the customs union in 2005, and the common market has only as recently as 2010 become operational. But the objectives of adopting the customs union or the common market, in the case of the EU is the single market, are similar for both regions. So they have been to boost trade and investment and to make the respective regions more productive and prosperous. So the customs union provides for a single customs territory with a common external tariff and for elimination of border controls and tariff and non-tariff barriers to free movement of goods, while the common market provides for the four freedoms. This is in the common market protocol for the ESE, and also for the single market for the European Union. The four freedoms are the free movement of people, services, labor, and capital. So essentially, therefore, the adoption of customs union and the common market leads to the liberalization of trade factors. So it enhances cross-border mobility of labor and capital and of the market. So it lifts the barriers on cross-border movement, also of goods and services. So, I want to draw a relationship between labor and capital mobility as a result of regional integration and employment. Again, the economists may excuse me. I'm not going to go into details of whether there are models that can be used to establish that relationship, but I'm going to draw again from the review that I've done on what has been written on this. So according to Breitenfeller, Quaresma, Muslechner, Richberger, and Grunwald, capital in the form of FDI typically flows to countries with a lower stock of capital, so in search of higher yield. So on the other hand, workers in search of higher wages migrate to countries with more productive and more employment opportunities. So the focus at the eve of the EU enlargement of 2004 therefore predicted capital flight towards the EU 10. So capital would move from the EU 15 and move to into regions with lower stock of capital, that is the EU 10, the new member states. And it also predicted heavy east to west migration because of gap in income between the EU 15 and the new member states. So that was predicted. So capital mobility would boost growth in the new EU member states, while labor mobility would enhance growth in the Eurozone, in the Euro area, so in the EU 15. In a rather interesting analysis of integration, Krugman and Venables have posited an interesting feature of capital mobility during integration. They call it agglomeration of industries. So they observe that in the pre-integration period, barriers to trade restrict industries in their respective state locations. So protectionist and interventionist government policies limit the movement of capital and of factors and of industries within the respective state locations. But then they also point out that when these barriers are reduced or eliminated, industries relocate to or agglomerate in a single location, forming what they call industrial districts. So the reduction in cost of doing business across space induces firms in similar industries to cluster together in a location which can support a larger base of producers. I don't know if the economists here will agree, but I believe this supports the view that I read from the economic geographers that they posit that mobile factors tend to migrate to locations where productivity effects are expected to be high. So, so industries will relocate to places where they can grow. So, studies have also shown that factor mobility has effects in the short run on unemployment. So Barrell, Fitzgerald, and Riley have attributed the effects of this to the changes in market equilibrium due to adjustment costs and the corresponding assumption that migration is initially unanticipated. That when, for instance, in the case of the enlargement of 2004, the markets in the EU15 did not anticipate that migration. So that's the assumption. So the argument is based on the assumption that labor market embodies some sort of equilibrium level of employment. So Barrell and Fitzgerald and Riley therefore observed that the assumption that the shock to migration is unanticipated means that the capital stock that is required for these additional workers is not in place when they arrive. So hence, labor demand is unchanged at given wages, but as a consequence, new migrants either displace existing workers or become unemployed. So when they move into places that were not expecting them, so the labor demand is not changed. But then you have more labor that has come in. So they either have to displace those that already exist or they become unemployed. So I find that